Intuitives. I know it's been, I don't know, about a week. Busy, a lot going on with a lot of things. Some of it's getting redundant and repetitive and annoying, but there's nothing I can do about it at the moment. So, not a lot of free time this past week anyway, and I don't see it ending for the next couple weeks. So, if I haven't answered comments and stuff, I'm not ignoring you. It's just I've been writing a lot. Let's just say I've been writing a lot, and you can probably figure out for what reason and what in my personal life has me writing so much. There's news articles about it, and so I'm going to say because they're listening. So, I wanted to do another topic for my paradoxical enigma personality of the INFJ, and that is the paradox of INFJ loneliness. Yes, introverts and loneliness. It's a thing, and it's paradoxical. So, INFJs, like everybody else, we get lonely at times, but unlike a lot of people, especially extroverts, we also greatly value our time alone and need that time to recharge, because while we are the most extroverted of the introverts, we're still introverts, and our ability to interact in social situations is like a battery. And, like some batteries, it can drain faster. If we're out in, say, a small group of people we know and trust and can hold deep conversations with, not too draining. If we're like in a nightclub with mere acquaintances and they're all shallow and superficial and materialistic, battery drains real quick and takes longer to recharge from. So yes, INFJs feel loneliness even intensely at times, and I believe this is pretty common amongst INFJs, particularly when we're younger, because in our younger years, say like in university, you're not fully aware of who you are. If you were like me, you don't know what an INFJ is. You just know you're different than everybody else, and that at times bothers you, and you wonder why you can't quote unquote fit in and be normal. So most of us are creative and also deep thinkers, and that's why we need our alone time to process that information, replay things in our head 1,000 times, work through our intuitive cues, and overthink shit all the time. So, with INFJ loneliness, it can be a bit of a paradox to understand, because while we want to interact, we also need alone time. And the loneliness for us isn't just like the need to be around people. It's the need to be around like the right types of people who understand us, people who have common interests, people who value integrity and authenticity and like deep thought, deep conversations, poetry, art, history, theater, things of that nature. Typically, that's the kind of people we get lonely if we go long periods of time without being able to interact with somebody on a deep, meaningful level. Unlike extroverts, it's not just wanting to be around people and gossip and talk about pop culture and materialistic things and shallow surface level, how's the weather, did you catch the sports ball game? That's draining for us and terrifying, and we don't want to do that. Rather, when stuck in those situations, you look out into the crowd and be like, I can so disappear into that crowd. Wait for them to turn their back for a second, and you're, vanished in the air like a ghost. Not that I've done that or anything, just 1 second I'm there and 1 second I'm gone. So prolonged loneliness, even as an INFJ, without interaction with the right people, can cause us to retreat into our own minds too much, and it can also cause self-doubt, cause us to overthink more, and cause NITI loops. This is because, while our intuition is usually right, if we're not able to bounce ideas off of and interact with people who think similarly and understand us, whom we can trust. Yeah, I know, short list for INFJs. It is a short list, and it's always going to be a short list because that's just how it works. But when we're able to run ideas by those kind of people, interact with them, we become more sure of ourselves, more sure of our own intuition. Even we need, validation from time to time that we're not descending into madness. All INFJs question their sanity from time to time. It is part of being an INFJ. But in times of prolonged isolation, when we retreat too far inward, we'll often fear that we're becoming too disconnected, that we're hard to put in words, but almost like if you're like, I'm trying to recall during lockdown, you regress. For INFJs, the ability to be social doesn't come naturally. It's something you learn over time. Young INFJs, I promise it gets easier when you're in your late 20s. So if you're 18, I'm sorry, you probably got a while to go. Just my own anecdotal experience. But over time, you start to understand yourself better and become more confident, and you start to get a lot better at seeking out the right kinds of people to try to engage with. But, when you're isolated for long periods of time and you lose touch with even the right people, you start to regress, and that progress you made in your social skills, in your ability to be amongst larger groups of people and being able to interact for at least longer than you could in your younger days, starts to go away, and you start to second guess yourself again, and you overthink more than normal, and you start to doubt what people really think of you. And I'm speaking anecdotally, so I have to add the caveat that this was particularly true for me, coming from, my narcissistic family background, where I was basically never allowed to be right and told to fall in line with whatever, the boomers thought, because they just know things, and they descended from Mount Olympus, or maybe they're the Anunnaki return. I'm not sure, but they certainly, held themselves up on a pedestal, that with the gods, because they say so, and who knows? Can't understand it, tried. Just want to get away from it now. But coming from that background, specifically myself, when you're stuck in your own head and you're isolated, and you can't validate how wrong they are by your interactions with people, particularly if you get out of that narcissistic environment, you get into like an overthink NITI loop mode, and you start to wonder, and you start to overthink every little thing, and you start to doubt yourself again, and you start to become more of a recluse because you've had to adapt to being alone even more than you as an INFJ would like. So that takes its toll, and that has to be unlearned. Still working on that. Then again, I'm isolated from, a group of a couple dozen people that actually did understand me for once, isolated from that progressive town, and now have PTSD, the gift that keeps on giving. And yeah, what a you have no contact from a narcissist, you get in a situation that gives you PTSD. Man, my luck is bad. Keep laughing, because it keeps you from crying or putting your fist through a wall, which hurts like hell. So, in situations like that, you have to remind yourself of what was real, and just because time has passed, without any particular incidents that would invalidate what was real, like your positive interactions with people who understood you, just because you haven't seen them in a couple months for whatever reasons, like a lockdown, doesn't invalidate how real that was. And INFJs can, maybe not want to acknowledge that. Maybe they want to think it was all a lie, or that they're being played because, trust issues. And when an INFJ gets wronged or betrayed, and we, become more cautious and try to see those signs in other people because we don't ever want to repeat that again. We're not the live and learn type, have fun along the way. It's, oh, this happened. Now I'm going to make damn sure that never happens again. I'm going to build the walls higher and let less people in, because letting less people in is better than being hurt again. So that's how, we can push ourselves into situations where we might experience loneliness more due to our trust issues. But dealing with that paradox of loneliness as an INFJ is a difficult one. It's difficult to explain even because it's very paradoxical. The best I can say is that, as usual, you have to trust your own intuitive cues when it comes to that. I mean, you know yourself when you're around the right type of people and when somebody understands you. Yes, there may become times where you're not able to interact with those people as much as even you as an INFJ would like, for various circumstances. Look at the world today. But that doesn't invalidate the connection you made with that person. There's no need to regress back to a time where you were more introverted, less social, had, extremely high guards up. And also remember that, as an INFJ, you are selective with who you interact with. And just because you're feeling that feeling of loneliness, don't interact with the wrong people just to interact with people because you're feeling like a hermit and that's starting to get to you. That usually will just lead to more problems. I could be wrong, but use your own intuition in that sense too. I know it's hard for us, when you've lost touch with somebody, to be the one to reestablish that connection, because that's not in our nature, especially if the person knows you're an introvert and they're not, because then it's like, when you're the extrovert, you should reach out. Why the fuck would you expect an introvert to do it? You know what a fucking hermit I am. That kind of thing. Sometimes you have to be the one to reestablish the connection, which is hard for us, because again, we'll think like, well, they're the social one. If they haven't reached out to me, they must not want to talk to me. And there's all kinds of factors. People live busy lives. If you come from an abusive background, you automatically, as been explained to me, that you are, basically indoctrinated to think that everything's your fault, and you have to over-explain every action you've ever done, because as I said in another video, victims of narcissistic abuse live their lives on trial. Yeah. And always feel like you're explaining something in front of a judge. Trust your own intuition as always, when reestablishing connections with people and dealing with your own sense of paradoxical loneliness. Don't sell out your integrity just to make connections with the wrong people just because you're feeling lonely. And I should be around more, but I'm going to end this one there because I got to go to work.